Is anybody here?
Yeah, we're here.
Yes.
Yeah, hi, Yangtin and Yingyu. The microphones, your microphones, yeah, light it up. So, how are you? How's everybody? So I can see there's, yeah, Abraham Garcia Morales just dropped a line in the chat box. Now, so looks like we have only 7 people. I mean, including myself, it's 8. But I see Ji Kwan is joining. How are you, Ji Kwan? So that makes 8.
Fine. How are you?
Hi, Ji Kwan. Good, good. How are you? So that makes 9 of us, but 8 students. Let me just check quickly how many are in the how many have signed into today's forum. I see there are 11 in the forum, right? 11 students in the forum. That means 3. There are still 3 that should come to the Collaborate. But anyway, please don't forget to sign into today's forum first. Okay. Yeah, you might say, this is a kind of, isn't this a forum? Yes, this Collaborate is a forum, but the forum I'm talking about is the sign-in sheet. Discussion board is the sign-in sheet. There you sign in. You must sign in on the discussion board, right? Every day there's class forum. That's where you leave your attendance report. And it's been this is the 2nd week, and exactly 8 days from last Tuesday, because last Tuesday we started. So last week people generally follow the class protocol, but this week somehow some people have forgotten. Some people forgot to sign into today's forum discussion board. But for your best interest, because I only see 9 people here, and one more person is joining, so that makes it 10. And in the discussion board there are 11, so one more person still needs to join our oh yeah, we are full house. What I can see is we have 11, so we are full house here. I mean, it's not really full house because on the roster there are 20 people, but so to make it full house, but at least I see 12. That's great. 12 people. 12 people are here. Good. But as far as the roster is concerned, because there are 20 people on the roster, officially there must be 20 people. But still, this is like 60% of Anyway, I just hope that okay, more people will. It's just 6:08, and I hope more people will join. Okay, so we got to go back to resume our discussion from where we left off, and this is actually the first week material, and we are behind, right? But although the Collaborate session is behind because we're reflecting on you cannot reflect on what is to come. You can only reflect on what has already passed, right? So that's inevitably we have to be, behind. But then every day, every day, the assigned videos are piling up. As of today, the videos that are due, for reading, for watching, are these. You had like, so this is for yesterday and today, these videos, right? Some of these are not videos. Something like these are just, cash equivalent, and cash, that's not a video, that's just a link. But you have financial statements intro 1 through 7. That's like 3 hours and a half, 3.5 hours of worth of videos, and these are 1 hour long each, 1 hour long. So that's 2 hours. So you have 5 hours and a half worth of 5 hours and 30 minutes worth of videos. So don't let it pile up. You should be all caught up to this. By the end of the day, you should be all caught up to this video. You understand, right? And don't just come to class, wait, I'm not going to give you a lecture, okay? I've been doing this, but I'm not spoon-feeding this. I'm not spoon-feeding this. The lecture is all there, in the video. And if you come to class thinking, I'm going to give you a lecture, in the collaborate session, look, I had to do this because it seems like your understanding is so shallow. I had to. That's reflection. We are reflecting on the lecture material, and to check how solid your understanding is. But then it seems like you don't really study. Study means when you're not just study doesn't mean just reading a book. Study doesn't mean just watching the video. When you're reading a book, if you're studying, you analyze it. You want to figure if something is said in the book is said, XYZ is ABC, and reading is not studying. That's stupid, right? Anybody can. You throw a book at a sixth grader, even a college book, they can read. But do they understand? No. Why? Because they lack the analytical ability. You have to analyze it. But if you just throw it if you give to a sixth grader a college, a textbook, they can read it. But that doesn't mean they understand it. That doesn't mean they need to analyze it to understand it. If you think just reading is that is a very rudimentary, and that is very how should I say? Studying is not reading a storybook, right? Storybook, storybook is easy, The easiest thing is, easiest thing is like literature. Of course, I'm not despising literature. A good literature is really well written. What is a well-written piece? A well-written piece has a structure, a very solid, good structure, right? The structure, even a novel, an easy novel. People say, I like reading, but then they think that makes them look very intelligent. No, not at all. Why? Because there are many levels of reading. Something like a joy reading, you read it while you're riding a bus, riding a train. There's nothing analytical. It's not a brainer. It's a no-brainer because it's just everything is linear. Story is linear. There's no structure. You don't have to, but even a novel, a very well-written novel, has a structure. You have to stop. You have to pause and go back somewhere. Oh, why is it like this here? You have to trace it back. Oh, back in chapter 2, there was this event, And there was, this guy, X, Y, and Z, these guys, and one is, detective, the other one is a doctor, the other one was a reporter, and reporter was, missing, and etc. Oh, that's why in chapter 5, this guy pops up, and, this was the reason behind it. Why, he disappeared, and why. All this, it's got a structure, right? But if you have to think like this, you have to hold on to that structure. Your brain should be able to keep holding on to that structure. But smart people can do that, but unintelligent people cannot do that. Unintelligent people cannot hold on to the structure because they cannot analyze the structure. For them, if the story is linear, without complex structure, but just linear, just one thing leads to another, that thing leads to another, and it's just linear. There's no, it doesn't require to stop. It doesn't require stopping at some point and going back to the previous chapters and regurgitating and making connections between one point and the other. It doesn't require that, right? Usually, children's books are easy read, but even for adults, there are easy reads. Easy readings are, and that doesn't require a lot of brain power, right? So once again, reading is not a big deal, first of all, because there are a lot of easy readings. And easy readings don't require structural thinking. It doesn't require analytical thinking, nothing like that. It's a no-brainer. But what we do takes a lot of brain power. You understand? So studying is not reading. Studying is analyzing all that and comprehend for yourself why it is so. You understand? So if you think, it seems like whenever I throw a question at you, some people have a good understanding. Some people follow because some people can do that structural thinking, and some people can analyze that structure, and they can connect the dots within this structure. But some people have a very shallow understanding, and they always say, "I'm still confused. I'm still confused." There are two reasons. One, you didn't study seriously. You didn't do serious. You're not used to serious thinking. Serious thinking requires really, efforts. Serious thinking requires efforts, blood, sweat, and tears. Just like Winston Churchill said. In World War II, when he, was, elected, when he was, elected prime minister after Chamberlain. Chamberlain, was it George Chamberlain or Lloyd Chamberlain was the prime minister, but he was too weak, and World War II broke out. And George Chamberlain wanted to make peace with Hitler, but Hitler never wanted peace. I mean he doesn't. Hitler doesn't have any respect for any weak leader or weak country. Winston Churchill knew the war was inevitable, and he had to win the war. And because there's no other option in a war. You win or you die. You kill the enemy, you defeat the enemy, or you die. So what option? Better, if it is to die, better the enemy than me, right? Better me. It should be me to survive and the enemy to die. Isn't that right? You have to have that determination, and Winston Churchill knew that. This is a choice there's no other option. It's do or die, fight or die. So in his speech, he said, I can only promise you blood, sweat, and tears. Blood, sweat, and tears. And that's the mindset you should have. This is a battle. I mean, when you are studying, when you study, when you are learning something, and this is not a knitting class. This is not a pottery class. This is clearly not a feel good, right? This is not a feel happy about yourself class, right? If you want to feel happy and good about yourself, I suggest a pottery class or knitting class, right? But this certainly takes, a determination of, Winston Churchill. This takes the determination of blood, sweat, and tears. You must have a determination of, paying the price, which is, willing to share, even, willing to shed blood, sweat, and tears. It's a hard course, right? It's a hard course. It's nothing like, simply, pat on the back and, great, wonderful, no. There's no, and this class doesn't have any open-ended question. There's no open-ended question in this class. All questions are closed-ended, meaning it has definitive answer, right? It's either right or wrong, right? In English class or in philosophy class, in history class or literature class, lots of answers, lots of questions can be answered by what? It depends, right? But that kind of answer doesn't apply in this class because, of course, the circumstances, the initial conditions, initial constraints or initial conditions will be given. But given the or the assumptions will be given. Given the assumptions, then there's no answer. There's no such open-ended answer like it depends, because initial conditions are all given, assumptions are given. Within those constraints or within those assumptions, then the answers are definitive. There is no such thing as it depends, right? Because, but those things work because in literature class or in history, philosophy, especially, everything is because no strict assumptions are given. So it depends. And then, but saying it depends means also what? You don't know. You have no idea. You don't have the answer. Anybody can say it depends, right? Because you don't know the answer, but you just say it depends, and it can pass. It can pass for an answer. That is no good answer in this class, because in this class, no question is open-ended. It's all closed-ended. So there will be a definitive. But to do that, you must be able to analyze the structure of the problem, right? It comes only after regurgitating, reflecting, many times as it takes for you to fully comprehend. You watch the video and you don't, your understanding is very shallow. Then you have to watch it again and make connections between this part and that part, and make connections make connections of different parts with the conclusion, right? All these activities are basically studying, right? When you studying takes these activities, the analytical activities, right? Analytical thinking. So, as I said, we are not, we are already behind. We are behind because this is last week's material. But at least by today, you should be done with this video, right? You should be done with this video by the end of the day. Also, you may have noticed that going back to the last week's topic, and this one is still visible. Still visible. These are still visible. I posted. How many of you have noticed this? I posted every day's session recording, right? I posted after the class. I posted the day's session recording of the day's session, right? Every day, and they were visible until Sunday. Okay. And if you are, serious, if you are serious at studying, you must have noticed and you must have reviewed all of them. Now, they are no longer available, but yesterday's recording is there. Today's recording will be there. So, as you have so many resources. Another thing, some people asked, how do I retrieve the videos that are more than 5 days old? For example, last week's videos, these are no longer visible because they are only visible for 5 days. So that's what it's saying here. This video will be available for 5 days, so make the most of it while the window is still open. Why do they call it window of opportunity? When that window closes, you don't have any more opportunity. So while the window is open and the opportunity is beckoning you, while the opportunity is waving at you, you gotta grab it. But then when it is, you tried everything, but you were, let's say, absolutely you had no time. You had no, because you had, all these issues at work, at home. You couldn't, seize that window of opportunity. Then what? I've been telling you, I have all of these. I have all my lecture videos on YouTube. Okay. So I'm not telling you to subscribe to it. I'm not, that's still,
I can subscribe, please.
Huh? Did someone say something?
I said like and subscribe, please.
Well, I mean, yeah, you may subscribe. Look, there's no harm in subscribing to it, but
No, I'm just joking, Professor. I'm just joking.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. But again, this is my channel, and at least you can. All my courses are on YouTube, and just bookmark or write down or bookmark these playlist names. You guys are fnb100, so the playlist name is CUNY BMCC FNB100. Okay, and then all the past videos are there. Okay, also I teach a lot of courses. So I have YouTube for playlist for every class. Another, I want you to also bookmark this because it's a different course, but some of the videos are cross-listed. Okay, some of the videos, because there are two topics are common to these two courses, so they are cross-listed. So you may not find some of the videos in this playlist. Then you might need to look into this playlist. Okay, and also this playlist, also bookmark this. That's literally FNB100 summer 2021. So you see this 720, 721, 72, 722, all last week's session recordings are there. Okay, you can always catch up. Yesterday's recording is there. Okay, so you can always revisit. You can also, you might wonder, this is another class, another course. Somehow this one has one of the students' face in it. It's not me. YouTube automatically scans the file, scans the MP4 or this video file and picks randomly, some images, to use as the cover image. But you don't have to. I mean, this is not your class. That's fine. But at least you should have, right? You should bookmark these. Okay, please bookmark. And don't tell me later, oh, professor, I couldn't do it because all those, those videos are already passed and I couldn't have any access to that. No, you have all the resources there. Okay, you have all the resources, and you only have yourself to blame if you say, oh, I didn't, I didn't have time for that, or I didn't, I didn't have access to the videos. You just have yourself, you just have yourself to blame. Understand? You have all the resources. Again, let me resume from where we left off yesterday. So yesterday we were talking about Fed funds rate and who sets the Fed funds rate. I mean target rate, not the and the actual market rate, the spot rate, is determined by demand and supply. But Federal Reserve intervenes in the Fed funds market, and through increasing demand. I mean, if Federal Reserve, think about it, increasing demand or increasing supply, or reducing supply, will Federal Reserve cannot increase demand for borrowing in the Fed funds market, but at least they can affect the supply of the loan. Okay, I heard a ding. I think someone was no. All right. So and what is that called? I mean, Federal Reserve intervening or getting involved in the money market, getting involved in the capital market and money market, and affecting the interest rate. That activity is called open market operation. So we need to think about what open market operation is. So to understand, and when the Federal Reserve gets involved in the bond market, in the capital market, especially, especially bond market specifically, that activity, through that activity, Federal Reserve increases or decreases money supply. So that's called, monetary policy. And so I said open market operation. Federal Reserve does that through open market operation. So here, what does open market operation mean? First of all, open market means it's not difficult to understand open market. That means, market is open to everybody. That's what, open market means. But yeah, market is open to everybody. Then does that mean, I can participate in that market? Yes, you can participate in that market. What market is that then? What market? Bond market, specifically bond market. Okay, so open means it's open to everybody, but everybody means what? Though the term everybody is like as if in the US, everyone is free to do anything. that is such a stupid statement. I mean, I'm not saying it sounds like, oh, you're free to do anything, unbridled freedom. But think about it. Is it okay to bother someone for your own freedom? Is it okay to bother someone? Is it okay to inconvenience or harm someone for your own freedom? Huh?
No.
No, of course not. So saying you can do anything, you can do anything, you have freedom to do anything. That's wrong. You can, if you have nobody else around you, within a 10 miles radius, if there's nobody else, no neighbors, then you can do any crazy thing to pursue your happiness. Right? A couple of days ago, I was taking a walk in the evening. That's the only exercise I get. And one of the houses in the street, and it's not like the neighbors are next to each other. I mean, it's very close. But they were having a party. This one home family was having a backyard party. But in that backyard party, they brought in a band. Of course, that I think it's not a professional band. It's like, someone in that family with his friends, And then in the backyard, they had, these, amplifiers and all these, instruments. So they were blasting live music, they were singing to the band music playing, and the music through the speaker and, amplifier, it was very loud. And the next door neighbor, what kind of sin did they do? What kind of crime did they commit? What kind of sin did they commit to deserve that? Did you ever think about that? And there are people blasting music while they are driving down the street. Driving down the street in a funky, painted car, blasting loud music. What about, do they ever care about the people living in the street? Huh? What kind of sin did they commit to deserve that? Is that pursuit of happiness? Is that pursuit of happiness justified? When that happiness comes at the expense of other people, is that justified? So we have to be, that's sensibility, isn't that right? That's sensibility. You're free to do anything. You have to take it with some grain of salt. You can pursue your happiness as long as it doesn't bother other people. And it's a common sense. Right? That's the common sense, that's the sensibility. But then, because of this very basic, simple statement is sometimes misleading. Oh, market is open to anybody. You can do anything. You have the freedom to do anything. Oh, you don't have freedom to kill your neighbors, or you don't have freedom to kill other people. You have freedom to be stupid, right? You have freedom to be stupid, but if it only affects you, that's fine. If it affects other people negatively and adversely, that's obviously against all common sense and sensibility. That's not. So of course, so how wrong is this statement? I mean, the bond market is open to anybody. I mean, is that wrong? No, it's not wrong. It doesn't hurt anybody that the bond market is open to anybody. But then what I'm trying to say is, yeah, you can say that like in a simple statement like that. But what that means is, who are the bond market participants? In other words, who goes to the bond market? If you go to the bond market, either you are selling bond or you are buying bond. So first of all, who sells bond? Um, before that, so bond in buyer, who buys bond? Of course, any individual can buy bond, right? Of course, you don't physically walk into the bond market and do that. You do it through the broker, right? You buy the bond or stocks through the broker, right? Brokerage firm. But so bond buyers, there are two types of bond buyers or bond investors. One, individual. Two, institutional. You understand? There are two types of investors: individual investors and institutional investors. Individual investor is really the individual. I have my own portfolio. I have stocks in my portfolio. I don't have any bond, but I have stocks and ETFs. Bond is safe, but not very interesting. The return is bond is less risky than the stock, but the return is that's why the return is lower. So of course, you should diversify. You should also have some bonds. You should have some stocks. You should have risk-free assets like Treasury. But there are individuals, individual investors. So individuals or institutional investors. Institutional investors are basically asset management firms, right? Institutional investors are asset management firms like BlackRock, Bridgewater. You've heard of Berkshire Hathaway, and Bridgewater is who is the CEO of Bridgewater? Anybody knows? Anybody knows? Bridgewater, it's an asset. So it's a big fund, big managed fund. Asset management firms are basically big managed funds. And who is the CEO of BlackRock? Do you know? BlackRock is also well known. Anybody? Okay, it doesn't really matter. You don't need to know them. It's probably the first time you've heard of those, asset management firms. I think Larry Finks is, the CEO of, and then Bridgewater, Ray Dalio, right? Ray Dalio, and also J.P. Morgan. It's an investment bank, but also investment banks do also asset management. Jamie Dimon, and big names in finance. Insurance companies. I talked about insurance companies yesterday because insurance companies are managing huge funds, huge capital, because every month, every day they have premiums coming in. But people generally think about it. I talked about auto insurance yesterday, and you remember you hardly use auto insurance, because unless you get into a very severe car accident, your car is totaled, or you got injured, your passengers got injured, that's the time you use that insurance. That's like once in a lifetime, most twice in a lifetime. You don't want that to happen. I mean, even if you can, take out insurance money, you can buy a new car from the insurance payout, or you can pay for hospital bills with the insurance payout. But then that's not the point. I mean, it's better to be safe than better to be safe and sound in one piece than lying in the hospital bed, with all with your fractures, bone fractures everywhere in your body. I mean, even if you get paid by insurance, what's the point? That's right. It's better. But so you don't use insurance, right? You don't basically you pay insurance premium, but you hardly get to use them, right? It's better. I mean, if it is a small minor fender bender, you just fix it by out of pocket. You fix it out of pocket, right? Also, as you live, you need not only first of all, there's health insurance, right? You got to have health insurance, right? Of course, when you get hospitalized, once in your life you may get hospitalized. Some, surgery. You might need some surgery. At least, something like, appendicitis, right? So it's better not to have any surgery. But once in your life, you might have a surgery. You might have a broken bone. You might need a surgery. But it's once in a lifetime. And then health insurance. Health insurance, you get benefit every time you go to see a doctor. Without insurance, out of pocket is too much, right? But it's relatively small amount compared to like car accident or what other insurance? Home insurance. If you have fire, right? Theft, or hurricane, flooding, you need to have home insurance, right? But again, you don't get to use them very often. It's probably once or twice in your life. But so from the insurance, think about it. Insurance company has a lot of money coming in all the time, but relatively fewer payouts compared to premiums coming in. So these are institutional investors. What do they do? What do the insurance companies? They put that money into the financial market, right? So asset management firms, insurance companies, they are all institutional investors. So why what brought this up? Why am I talking about this? Because in the open market, open to anybody, what does that anybody mean? Institutional investors and individual investors. And what else? Is it everything? No. I already, it's in your face. Individual, institutional investors, foreign or domestic. Foreign or domestic. It's open to not only domestic, institutional, and individual investors. The financial market is open to also foreign, individual, and institutional investors. Okay, that way, more capital, more funds are being, passing through the financial market. And that's the buyer side, right? Investor side or the buyer side of the bonds. Then let's think about the seller side. Who's selling the bond? It's there are two or three entities that sell bonds. One, federal government, right? Federal government. Why do you think it is called treasury bill, treasury note, treasury bond? Because Treasury Department, which is the borrowing arm, financing arm of the federal government, right, is issuing those bonds. So that's why it's called treasury bond, right? Because Treasury Department is issuing it, treasury bond. And then there are local, state and local governments, and government agencies also sell bonds, right? So it's called, municipal bond, municipal, state government, local government, government agencies like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. When government agencies are selling bonds, they are all called municipal bonds. And then what's the third entity? Corporations. Corporations sell bonds too. Okay, so the open market operation means in the open market where anybody can participate, any investor can participate. These national government and municipal governments and corporations sell bond, right? And even foreign governments can sell bonds in the U.S. In the market. Foreign companies definitely sell bonds and stocks in U.S. market. They can be, they can be listed in the U.S. stock exchange. They can sell bonds, stocks and bonds in the U.S. market. Also, U.S. companies can sell stocks and bonds in the foreign stock exchange as well. That's why it's open to domestic and foreign investors. And so, what is a bond? Bond is basically bond is borrowing. So, if a company sells bonds for $1 million, and all the bonds have face value of $1,000, all the bonds have face value of $1,000. So that means if a company is raising, wants to raise $1 million, right, by selling bonds, then more or less they are selling like 1,000 bonds. I mean, I said more or less. It's not going to be exactly 1,000 because although the face value is 1,000, the selling price is not 1,000. Selling price could be lower or higher than 1,000. So the face value of 1,000 is also called par value. Face value of 1,000. That's also called par value. Actual selling price will deviate from that par value of 1,000. Okay, so here I threw in some bond terms. Face value or maturity value or par value is 1,000. Now this face value is what you will redeem at the end of the maturity, at the end of the bond maturity, right? So as coming back to that example, if a company is trying to borrow 1 million from the bond market, they will need to sell about 1,000 bonds, roughly about 1,000. It's going to be 1 million. So why does the company borrow from the bond market? I mean, think about it. If any business wants to borrow 1 million, there are three ways. There are three ways they can do that. If you think about it, first of all, they can go to the institutional lenders. Institutional lenders are basically, what does that mean? That means banks, right? Banks are institutional lenders. They can go to the bank. They can go to the financial companies for small amounts, especially borrowing for short-term Short-term meaning under 1 year, borrowing for 90 days, borrowing for 60 days, for something like just borrowing for 60 days. They can go to the banks or some financial companies, or they can look for a private investor, right? They can borrow from a private investor. Or the third option is sell bonds in the bond market, right? Sell bonds in the bond market. If you sell bonds in the bond market, and most of the times companies want to do it, companies pick this bond market. Why? One benefit is, first of all, one clear benefit is you can access, basically you are facing a large audience, large number of potential investors. I mean, if you go to a bank, you have to talk with one bank at a time. I mean, you can go to Chase and try to borrow 1 million as a business, right? And then the interest rate they charge may not be to your liking, and if this is not to your best, it's not to your liking, you'll have to go to another bank, and so on. And usually, but if you so it will take time, because you have to go from one bank to another to look for the best rate. But if you do it in the bond market, it's competitive. I mean, a company like you, there may be many companies that are as qualified as you. I mean, in terms of credit rating, there are companies that have similar credit ratings as you, which mean similar risk. So that means you have to be competitive, because you're borrowing. You have to pay interest. So you have to pay at least as much as other companies are paying for interest, other companies that are similar to you. But again, there's a huge, huge investors, huge number of investors. So also the investors, are competitive. You can be selective about that. If you don't have any benefit, I mean, at least the benefit would be in the interest that you have to pay. And it's not the only thing. There will be, later I will explain to you why this is the most preferred, because it's not only preferred by you, but also preferred by the lender, by the investors, because the lenders can always easily sell the bonds and to another investor, right? So then they get their money back, and this bond will be, and if the maturity is 10 years, it doesn't have to be the first lender, right? It can be any nth lender, right? Financial assets are basically changing hands, right? You understand what I'm saying. For example, I have Tesla stocks. I have Tesla shares, not many. I just have 2 shares. I just tried my luck. I didn't have that much luck. So, but think about it. I wasn't the original. Am I the when Tesla went public, first Tesla IPO, that wasn't back in 2010, I believe. Tesla went public in 2010 or 2012 or 2010. And they suppose Tesla sold, let's say Tesla sold 1 million shares. If Tesla sold 1 million shares, and at IPO, the first time when they sold the stock at IPO, let's say Tesla stock was, IPO price was $100. That's when stock was first sold. and they sold 1 million shares. If they sold 1 million shares, what is the total capital they raised? If each share was $100 and they sold 1 million shares, what is the total total dollar value of capital they raised? Anybody can tell me? Can anyone tell me? I mean, is this that difficult? You only need to work with zeros. Face value, the price of the stock was $100, right? And they sold 1,000 shares. So what's the total amount of capital raised? Anyone? I don't like this silence. I don't like this silence lasting 5 seconds. If it is a very hard question, there can be silence. But this is a very easy question. And nobody can answer this? How many zeros are there? Come on, guys. If you can't answer me, I will take points off, okay? You've been earning points, right? But for answering correctly, but simple as, I will pick randomly. If you can't answer this, I'll take points off. Abul, are you there, Abul? Abul, you're not here. Huh? I see. Abroback, are you there? I see you guys here. You're all, and your internet connection is good. I see, you don't have any internet connection. You guys, come on. How about you, Safia? Safia, are you there? Safia? If you're there, can you raise your hand? I would have to assume that you're not here. You're just connected and then. Okay, Safia, you are here. But why don't you answer? Safia, can you answer this? I mean, $100 per share, right? And they sold 1 million shares. So what is the total value of the dollar? What is the total dollar value? What's the total capital amount that they raised from this IPO?
Well, I would assume that if it's $100 per share, then they had 10,000 shares.
No, 1 million. They sold 1 million shares. $100 per share and 1 million shares. So.
Is it 100 million?
Yeah, 100 million. Who was that?
Million?
Yeah, 100 million. Who was that? Who was that? Abraham. Okay. Abraham. Okay. So.
Not me, but somebody else said it. But
okay, who said it first? Who said it first? It was a gentleman. It was a gentleman.
Abul.
Abul. Okay, Abul. Okay. Yeah. This is not even a challenging question, but yeah, I'll give you 0.25 for that. 100 million, right? Just 100 and 1 million. So 8 zeros, right? So at IPO, this is called so this is the called equity raised, equity, right? Equity capital raised from IPO. So that means 100 million transferred from investors to Tesla. So Tesla, this is Tesla's equity capital. This is not lending. This is not a loan. This is not a loan. This is investors taking part in the ownership of Tesla. So whether Tesla prospers thrives or Tesla fails, they go together. I mean, if Tesla prospers, then the stock price will be not just 100. I mean, 200. Currently, Tesla is somewhere around 600 something, but there was a time when Tesla was even somewhere around 1,000 something, and then that's when they did. That was like earlier last year. There was profit taking. They sold, and the price went down to something like 800 or 400, and then back to like 800 earlier this year. And then it is somewhere around 600. But think about it. When IPO price is basically, actually in stock, IPO price is the par value. In case of bond, maturity, face value at maturity you get the face value. So face value is the par value as well as maturity value. For stocks is the opposite. But what the reason I'm talking about this is when Tesla sold his stocks at IPO, and do you think the companies sell stocks every once in a while? Do the companies sell stocks every once in a while? Mohammed, since your microphone is on, I want to ask you this question. Do the companies sell stocks every once in a while?
Yes.
Mohammed? Yes? Did you say yes, Mohammed?
No, it's me. I'm Broadback, Professor.
Algebraic. Okay, Algebraic, no. Companies don't sell stocks every once in a while. Once you sell stocks through public offering, first there is IPO.
No, I said no. That was someone else answering yes. My audio wasn't working.
Who said yes? Yeah. I know. It's not you, Mohammed. Algebraic. Algebraic said he did. Okay? I don't know why you are, I hear, although it's always, conflicting, some people are saying all at the same time, but Algebraic said a while ago that he was the one who answered yes. So I know it's not you, and you could have heard that too. You should have heard Algebraic, say that. Now, companies don't sell stocks every once in a while. They sell it only at a certain time. First of all, at IPO, that's initial public offering. That's when companies go public for the first time. And many years later, many years afterwards, maybe 5 years, 10 years, or even 20 years later, there may be a second public offering. It doesn't have to be like 20 years, but 5 years later, 10 years later, second public offering, right? So in other words, companies don't sell stocks, every once in a while. They don't sell stocks every day or anything. Why? First of all, think about it. This is a very simple mathematical logic. When they sold, when Tesla sold, let's say 1 million shares for $100 per share, then total equity value is 100 million. And this is called book value because it will be recorded in the book. With the book means their balance sheet. Book means financial statements. Okay, there are 4 financial statements: balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statement, and retained earnings statement. Right? Retained earnings statement is relatively less important, but at least 2 statements are very fundamental: balance sheet and income statement. And this $100 million will enter the balance sheet because balance sheet shows where the capital come from and where it went to. Now think about it. Why why did Tesla need $100 million in the first place? Well, that's the capital that is needed to expand their production capacity. I mean, Tesla needs money to build plants and money to put the manufacturing equipment into the plant, right? They need to acquire buildings for, office space and, whatever. They need to acquire raw material for building the cars, for making cars. And so this capital is invested by, by selling stocks or bonds, but let's just, confine it to stocks. They sell stocks, and then that capital, the $100 million, comes into the company. Using that, they acquire buildings, plants, equipments, raw materials. So these $100 million simply transformed into physical assets. Do you understand? $100 million came into the company in the form of money capital, right? $100 million came into the company in the form of money capital, and then they transformed into plants, hard assets or fixed assets such as plants, right? Equipment, buildings, right? Raw materials, and these are basically hard assets, right? Physical capital as opposed to money capital. So balance sheet shows that, 100 million came in from sale of stocks. And let's say they also they sold bonds for 100 million, and then 100 million came into the company in the form of money capital, and their total and that was also used for acquiring factories and acquiring plants, equipments, manufacturing equipments, and etc. But in this case, the money that came in by selling bonds is different from selling stocks. Why? If you sell bonds, that's borrowing. It's borrowing. But if you sell stocks, it's not borrowing. You don't have any obligation to the stockholders. But when you sell bonds, you have an obligation to pay interest and the principal back at the end to the bondholders. Okay, but then the reason, I digressed a lot, but the reason I'm talking about this is that the money isn't stagnant. In other words, first of all, so if I was one of the stock buyers, investors, one of the investors at the IPO, right, back in 2010, when Tesla went public, if I was one of the first round investors, if I was one of them, I paid, and if I bought 100 shares, what does that mean? I paid $10,000, right? And if I have held on to those Tesla stocks, 100, early 2020, I must have hit my $100 must have gone up to $1,600, or I'm not sure. It was like 1,600 at the time, I guess. So think about it. What is that? That's 15-fold or 1,500% return, right? Over 10-year holding period. And if I sold at that point, I must have harvested, I must have reaped 1,500% return. Right? Makes sense? But then, and even if I still hold on to it today, if I sell today, I would realize about 500% return. But then, think about it, it's 10 years. Are all Tesla stockholders the same investors who bought Tesla stock in the first round at IPO back in 2010? Can anybody answer that?
No.
No. It's clear. It's obvious. And who said no?
Mohammed.
Mohammed. Okay. So Mohammed, I'll give you 0.25 for that. Yeah. Why? Not all the Tesla stock shareholders today are the original shareholders who bought Tesla stock at Tesla IPO back in 2010. Right? That first round of stock sale, IPO, that's called primary market. Right? But then think about it. I could have bought 100 shares at the time. But in 2015, I could have sold them. And I could have sold them, at when the price was like 1,600. I could have sold them at its, pinnacle, right? That was the highest point. But the fact that I'm selling, the fact that I sold those stocks means there were buyers, right? There are buyers who buy from me, from my. So, of course, nobody knew 1,600 was the highest point. Nobody knew. If there is a buyer who buys, that means they believe that the stock would still go up. That's why they buy. If they knew that is the highest point, nobody will buy. Isn't that right? But nobody knows whether that was the highest point or not. But my point is, if I sold Tesla, I bought it in 2010 so I was one of the first round buyers, right? First round buyers. I bought it at IPO. And if I sold it in 2015 or 2012 or 2000, anytime later, that means there's a second round of buyers, a second round. And then there will be third round of buyers. It doesn't happen all at the same time because another IPO buyer, another investor who bought Tesla at IPO could have bought right the next day. Or 5 years later, or 3 years later, or 3 months later. So in other words, basically, what is happening with the financial assets? What is happening with the financial instruments like stocks and bonds? They change hands constantly. They change hands, right? That's called the secondary market. Primary market happens only once. Primary market happens only once in the life of any financial instrument, right? When it was first issued, right? That is primary market. But after that, secondary market happens every day. There's a trading every day, secondary market. So, of course, I bought Tesla stock in the secondary market, not the primary market, because I bought last year or and just to try my luck, I just bought 2 shares. I'm not, but still a shareholder, 2 shares. Because when I bought it was like 810. Now it's 600 something. So obviously it was a capital loss, but it's not realized. It's just paper loss. I'm still holding it. There was a stock named. There was a stock called DDD, 3D. It's a 3D printing company. 3D printing. And years ago, I bought those stocks. And that was when it was years ago. I don't remember, many years ago. After, and then, the price was, when I bought it was like almost, $80, $90. And I bought when it was about $70 or $60. So there was a time I had a good time, it wasn't, I had a unrealized, capital gains on paper. And after reaching $90 or something, then it dropped and it dropped and dropped. And then it was like $8. It was too late to, sell. And I was holding on to it. And then I was holding on to it for about 5 years, and it didn't move that much. It didn't move that much. So 5 years was enough, and I can, if I sell, I definitely realize capital loss. And if I realize capital loss, I can use it to lower my taxes, because there was I could use it to lower my taxes. At least, that is one thing I could, that can come out of that. But then after I sold, and about a month after I sold, and I sold at about $12 or something like that. And about a month later, for no good reason, I mean, there must have been some, big fund, managed fund, investing in this 3D. The price went up to like 30 something. And I believe it is still, that stock is holding somewhere around 30 something or so. You never know. I should have waited 1 month at least, but nobody knows, because for 5 years there was no move. The price didn't move that much, and there was no good, positive, event. But anyway, the point is, why companies, sell, if they want to borrow $10 million, most of the time, the preferred method is going to the bond market and selling it in the bond market. Why? Because there's a huge number of buyers, investors, and investors have like peace in mind, because they don't tie up their money. Think about it. If they are going to the institutional lender, like bank, and if a company is borrowing $10 million for 10 years, think about it, $10 million for 10 years, that means the bank has to commit to that loan, and the bank is tying up its $10 million for 10 years to this company. Isn't that right? Between one, lender and one borrower, sometimes, it will work like bond later, but, if a bank lends me money, right? I'm buying a house, so I get a mortgage loan. Then what happens? So I borrow $1 million. My loan is $1 million. And what does that mean? The bank's $1 million is tied up, right? Bank will have $1 million less to lend for the next 10 years. Does that make sense? Because that 1 million is tied up. Of course, I'm paying every month, but I'm making payment every month, but bank is for $1 million to be repaid with interest. It will take 10 years, right? So the bank doesn't have lump sum 1 million for 10 years. They have $1 million less. So it's a burden to the bank as well, isn't that right? But in the bond market, think about it. There's no burden from the investor's perspective. I mean, there's certain burden because there's always some risk. But if I don't like to take risk, I can check the company's bond ratings. The credit rating, right? You remember, for individuals, it's called credit score. It's called credit score, but for if it is here or not, for the companies, it's called credit rating. Credit rating is basically A, B, C, D. The ratings are A is, of course, the highest rating. It goes without saying, highest rating. If it then again breaks down into three grades: triple A, double A, single A. And sometimes there is single A plus, single A minus, triple A plus, triple A minus, and then so there are like 9 grades, right? Even in A, double A plus, double A minus. I mean, if it is like that, there will be 9 grades, right? 9 grades, even within A. Now, if you want safety, then you pick triple A. You just invest in triple A rated company, right? But then obviously the return is uninteresting. Return won't be that interesting because a very safe company won't have to pay high interest rate. But a triple B company, let's say triple B is the baseline of investment grade. Below triple B is considered risky, right? The risk goes up anyway as the rating goes down, but triple B will pay much better return than triple A. Triple B will pay better return than single A, right? But then risk is higher than single A or double A. You get the idea? Anyone? Nobody's. Are you following?
Yes.
Are you following? Huh? Okay. I told you. Listen, I told you. I don't like delayed response. I don't like delayed response. You should be. I don't like delayed response. Your mind, your brain should be agile, nimble, and agile. It's like instant response. If your mind is working, with a lot of agility, question is thrown like this, then you should, instantaneously respond. But it's like, I don't know how many of you are awake or paying attention. Here, I can see these are like, internet connectivity, like, internet speed. Some people would, like this. What is this basket? Is some if the basket is has low level, that means it's idling. That person is. But I want you to have more agility, mental agility. Okay. So anyway, so I digressed a lot, but the point is, the reason they prefer the bond market is think about it. Just like, you don't have to be the first round. You don't have to be the first round investor. Someone bought, when the company sells bonds, right? Just like stocks, if a company sells bonds, it's borrowing. Stocks are not borrowing. Stocks, if the company loses that money, you have nothing, because you invested as a partial owner of the company. When owners have nothing left, if the business fails, eventually owners have to shoulder it. Isn't that right? That's what owner is. But bond is borrowing. So if you bought bond, you are a lender, and lender has claim whether company is whether the borrower's business is doing well or not. You are entitled to the fixed interest, and you are entitled to, of course, if the company goes bankrupt, they cannot pay you back the principal. But that you can regulate, at least you can control it, because you can invest, you can see their credit rating, and you can invest only in the company that has the highest credit rating. And then you minimize the chances of default, right? It's not you defaulting, it's the company defaulting, but you minimize that chance, right? You minimize the probability by bond holders, bond investors, they are not the ones in the first round. They're not the ones who bought the bonds in the first round. I mean, someone could sell it after buying the bond. They can sell it to somebody else. For example, I bought 10 bonds of company X, and I told you bond face value is 1,000, but it can sell below or above that price. So suppose I paid $800. When I bought, I paid on $800, and I bought 900, let's say 900, or 800, let's say 800. I bought 100 bonds, so that's like 80,000, right? 80K. And if I hold it for 10 years, I will get 1,000, right? I will get the face value. It's called the redemption value. I will redeem 1,000. So I'm for investing 80K, I get 100K. There's a capital gain there. There's a capital gain. And then during these 10 years, I collect interest every 6 months. If the interest rate on this bond is called coupon rate, if the coupon rate is 10%, annually I collect 10%, $100, 10% of the face value. So $100 on over 10 years. Then interest I collect, total sum of the interest I collected is 1,000. Now, not just 1,000, because I bought how many? 100 bonds. So 100 times 100, so 10,000. 10,000. The sum of the interest is 10,000. So in other words, you remember the holding period return. So here, I paid 800, right? And at maturity, I get 1,000. So there will be, capital gains of 200, and then every year for 10 years I receive 100. So income is 100 times 10, 1,000. Right? That's from just one bond, but I have hundred of them. So times 100, and that's going to be 10,000. Yeah. So that's exactly, and then if I don't hold on to it, if I just, then what? I can sell it. But when I sell, it could be, here's the thing. When I sell, it could be, higher than the price I paid. It could be 1 year later or 2 years later. If I sell, I paid $800. The price could be $850. Right? I realize, when I sell, it could be $850. I still realize capital gain of, then $50 per bond, and then I collected interest for 2 years, right? $200. And then this second person who bought it from me can sell it in year 8. By year 8, the price must be much closer to 1,000, right? The price will, think about it, the price will get closer to 1,000 as you approach the maturity, as time approaches the maturity. Why? Suppose it is, today is day D-1. Okay? Suppose today is D-1. 1 day, that means 1 day before the maturity. And what should be the price of this bond today? Anybody can tell me? Suppose today is just 1 day ahead of 1 day before the maturity of the bond, right? What should be the price of the bond then today? Anyone? I don't like this 5-second silence. So I will. Okay, let me. Abul, are you here, Abul? Abul, you're not there.
If it hasn't reached the maturity date, I thought that it wouldn't.
Yes, Professor,
They're not
I'm
going to
here.
earn anything.
Oh, hold on. Safia was saying something. Safia, go ahead, please. What did you say?
My understanding is that if it hasn't reached the maturity date, you haven't earned the full face value. So wouldn't it just kind of be the same as when you put it in?
Yeah. Think about it. At maturity, you will redeem 1,000, the face value. So if you're 1 day ahead of maturity, then the price should be close to 1,000, the face value. Close. It should be like $999.90, right? There should be hardly any difference, right? So that means as you approach maturity, the price would be closer to the face value, 1,000, okay, or the maturity value. Alrighty, Safia, I'll give you 0.25 for that. So think about it. The reason it is, so anyway, so if I'm selling it 1 day ahead of, if it is 1 day ahead, of course I wouldn't sell it. I just wait 1 more day, then, I will, if I paid $800 10 years ago, I will realize the capital gain of 200, right? And all these years, 10 years, I've collected, 100, interest of 100 every year, right? But, the fact that I can sell this, in other words, in year 2, I may have some financial difficulty. So I will have to, I need cash, so I will have to probably sell my bond holding. I can do that. And the next guy who bought it from me can sell it whenever he needs. In other words, you can liquidate. You understand? Liquidity. You can turn it into cash flow liquidity, right? So because of that aspect, that benefit, bond market is preferred, right? So it took so much time to explain why, so then, we need to talk about the open market operation, but we haven't got to open market operation, mechanism of open market operation yet. But, still, we need to still talk about the bond classification. I think even, let me take, because it's 7:38, maybe I won't take any break. Let's not take any break, and I will finish at 8 o'clock. Okay, how does that sound? So, yeah, let's not take any, even if I take break, it's just like 5 minutes. And all right, the bonds can be classified already, we know it can be classified by who is the issuer. Remember, who's the issuer? It can be the federal government, it can be the municipal government, it can be corporations, right? So depending on who is the issuer, Treasury bond, corporate bond, and municipal bonds. And I only put corporate and treasury here. And in other countries, I mean, if the national government, I told you, U.S. federal government's borrowing is called, a treasury bond, treasury securities, or treasury securities in general. What about other countries? What about other countries? I mean, because in the U.S., it's the federal government, right? And the Treasury is the arm. Other national governments, they sell bonds too. And what are they called? In general, it's called sovereign debt. Sovereign, right? The debt of the sovereign government, right? Sovereign country's government. So sovereign debt, right? That's the term in general. Now, in the U.S., also depending on maturity, what did I say? Short term is always, 1 year, under 1 year maturity is always called short term. Long term is above 1 year. Anything above 1 year is long term. Anything above 1 year is long term. So in case of Treasury, there are three, for long term, there is, further classification. Long term and very long term. Very long term is my terminology. It's not they are actually called very long term, but how should I name it? Long term 1, long term 2. So I call it long term and very long term. Treasury bond, the name bond applies to only very long term, right? The name bond applies to very long term. And that's maturity between 10 and 30 years. And if the maturity is between 1 and 10 years, it's called treasury note. If the maturity is less than 1 year, it's called treasury bill. Treasury bill. And for corporations, corporate bond is the term reserved for basically long-term debt. So long-term debt is called bond. Actually, for corporations, they have 30-year bond too. I said, not available. No, it's not. What I'm saying is this type of classification is not applicable to corporate. I mean, they don't break it up into 1 year to 10 years, 10 years to 30 years. They don't break it up like that. For corporate bonds, anything between 1 and 30 years, that's called bond, basically. That's called bond. Okay. And corporate debt with maturity less than 1 year is called commercial paper. Another name for commercial paper is, does anyone know what's the other name for commercial paper? Short-term borrowing, by businesses, short-term borrowing. Usually the maturity is 30 days or 60 days. Theoretically, because short-term is under 1 year, theoretically it can go up to 270 days, but it's not marketable. Nobody buys 270-day commercial paper. Usually it is, 30 days or 60 days. The maturity is maturity for that borrowing is 30 days to 60 days. But it's called commercial paper. Does anyone know what the other name? Does anyone know another name for commercial paper? Anyone? I would say no one. So it's called a promissory note. So promissory note and commercial paper are basically the same thing. Promissory note and commercial paper are basically the same. Anyway, then that's the classification based on the maturity, and then classification it can be classified by whether the bond is paying interest or is not paying interest. So it can be non-interest bearing or non-interest bearing. If it is interest bearing, it's called coupon bond. If it is non-interest bearing, it's called zero coupon bond. First of all, you might wonder, Professor, didn't you say bond is basically borrowing? Yeah, from the company's perspective, borrowing. And from the investor's perspective, it's lending. But how can there be any lending? I mean, doesn't every borrowing, all borrowings basically involve interest? I mean, what is the incentive? If I'm an investor and if I buy bonds and if the bonds don't pay any interest, what is my incentive? Why do I buy that? Yeah, so basically, most bonds pay interest, but there are bonds that don't pay any interest. And if they don't pay interest, why should I buy that? There's no incentive. Well, there's an incentive. I told you the bond doesn't, face value is 1,000, but the bond doesn't exactly sell for the face value. You remember that? And in the example I gave you, the bond was selling for $800, right? So and then the bond was paying 10% interest a year. So I realized capital gain. I mean, when I hold it for 10 years until maturity and sell it, at maturity I redeem, not sell, because I'm at that time, the bond is, returned to the issuer, and I redeem face value of 1,000, and I get final interest, final year's interest. So there's capital gains and there's income, right? Interest income. But if it doesn't pay any interest, then the only incentive is buying it at a very low price. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Zero coupon bond doesn't pay interest, but they sell at deep discount. Did someone say something? Did someone say something? I heard someone. Okay. Okay. I will just,
I said
ignore.
no.
You said what? Come on, don't moderate, don't mumble, just enunciate. You said something, so please complete that statement. What did you say? And who was that? Algebraic? Was it Algebraic?
Yes, Professor. Yes, I said just no.
No to what? I mean, no
You
to.
said it doesn't make sense, right? I said no.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I mean, if I have to pay the same the face value, and if there's no interest, then no capital gains, it doesn't make sense. So the only way it makes sense, if it's not paying interest, is that it will have to sell at deep discount. So for example, if a bond has a maturity, 30-year maturity, and of course the face value or the maturity value is 1,000, that means if I buy it today, it should sell at, deep discount. Actually, there are bonds that sell for $500. There are bonds that sell for $500, but the maturity is 30 years. So 30 years later, it's going to be 1,000. And you might wonder, who wants to do that? I mean, who can wait 30 years? You don't have usually, you know, people who have a very long time horizon and who don't need that money right away. They do this, and it's called, you know, there's a 30-year Treasury bond, 30-year non-interest-bearing Treasury bond, right? It's called, you know, usually, you know, they go by many different names, U.S. savings bond, or you know, Series E bond, or but that doesn't really mean anything. Because it can be Series E, Series F, Series D, but the point is it has to be a zero coupon, 30-year U.S. Treasury zero coupon bond. If it is a 30-year zero coupon U.S. Treasury bond, that means it's selling today for $500 and maturity is 30 years. 30 years later, you don't need that money. I mean, let's say you have $10,000. You don't need that money anytime soon. You don't need that money anytime soon. So with $10,000, how many bonds can you buy with $10,000? So it's selling for $500, right? So with $10,000, you'll buy 20 of them. You can buy 20 of them. Isn't that right? You can buy 20. So you buy 20 bonds, and you don't. And if you're a senior citizen, and your grandchild is born today, you can buy it for your grandchild, because this 20 will become 20 bonds will become. You paid you know, 10,000. 30 years later, it will be 20,000. 20,000 is not a big deal, but you know, suppose you bought, you know, like 200. So that means you had, you know, 100,000. You put 100,000 into this, and when your grandchild is 30, right, this is going to be 200,000. And if inflation is not crazy, 30 years later, this 200,000 will be still something, will be worth something, somewhere around slightly less than 20,000 after, you know, in real dollars. But in nominal dollars, it will still be 200,000. But in real purchasing power, it may be less. In real purchasing power, it may be less, right, than what $200,000 can buy today, but still will be nominally 200,000. Okay, but it's not only senior citizens. I mean, I've been telling you, investors are not only individuals. Individual investors are only a small part of the entire financial market. The bigger chunk, much bigger chunk, is the institutional investors. Think about it. Insurance companies, they manage huge amount of capital. They manage, like, you know, hundreds of billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. They can mobilize a huge amount of capital. And then think about it. If there are some insurance companies, for example, there are, like, you know, term life insurance, or, you know, like pension fund, you know. Some insurance companies are managing pension fund, you know. So they are handling they're managing pension fund, and this pension fund will 30 years later, they have a batch of retirees, and they have to pay them, you know, like annually, you know, $100,000 or $50,000. I mean, think about it. With the premiums that have come in, they can put into a like 30-year Treasury, zero coupon Treasury. 30 years later, when they have to pay out, they will have money ready. right? So I mean, it doesn't have to be 30 years. It can be 10 years. It can be 5 years. It can be, so zero coupon bond is a bond that is discounted deep discount. And also, I already told you this. Coupon bonds pay interest until maturity, to maturity, in semi-annual payments. In other words, if the interest, I told you, interest that the bond pays is called coupon interest or coupon rate. If the coupon rate is 10%, the coupon rate is 10%, that means annually 10%. So every 6 months, 5%. Makes sense? Every 6 months, you get $50. And that's 10%. The coupon rate is based on the face value. If it is 10%, that's 10% of the face value. So 10% of 1,000. So it's $100 annually, $50 every 6 months. Okay? But now think about it. So the bond, if it is, coupon bond is exactly like the house example, house value example, right? Just like house value example. There will be capital gains or capital loss. Over the life of this bond, there can be capital gains or capital loss, and then there's additional income. I already showed you. It's exactly like that. There will be capital gains or capital loss, and interest income is this. So that means return and the interest are different. You understand? Interest is the coupon interest. In other words, coupon interest rate. 10%. If the bond pays 10% coupon interest, then interest rate is 10% annually, right? A coupon interest. But think about it. Every year and over the holding period, over the life of this bond, there will be a holding period return. Holding period return is coming from two things. One, capital gains or capital loss. Two, interest paid. So obviously, if you annualize for the bond, let's say 10-year bond, with this 10-year bond, you have capital gains or capital loss and interest for 10 years. So if you calculate the holding period return and annualize it, right? That annualized return is different, clearly different from coupon interest rate. Annualized return is different from interest rate, right? Annualized interest rate can be greater than or less than the coupon interest rate, or could be equal, depending on, so, and I said, why capital loss? I mean, in the example I used previously, there's capital gains, but there can be capital loss too. Why? Sometimes the bonds sell above par value. We have only assumed an example where the selling price of the bond is below par value, but sometimes there are bonds that sell above par value. So the selling price, this is a 10-year bond with 10-year left to maturity. This bond is selling at $1,200. How can that be? How can that be? Huh? How can the bond sell above its maturity value? Well, it's possible. First of all, why does the price go up? Can anybody answer me? What makes the price go above the par value? What makes the price go above the par value?
Demand?
Yes. Who said demand? Who said demand?
Gabriel?
Yeah, Gabriel?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes, it's everything. Gabriel, you got 0.25 for that. It's the demand. If the demand is strong, it pushes up the price. But what makes this bond that popular? What makes the demand for this bond that strong? A very good incentive. If this bond
Economy?
is paying,
Economy?
I'm sorry?
Maybe economy?
No, that's too vague. I mean, why? I mean, what factor in the economy makes this demand for this bond so strong? What factor? The factor is, of course, the incentive. Then what is the incentive to buy this bond? Think about it. Didn't I say bond is kind of lending?
Maybe demand? Maybe demand?
Oh, demand, he said already. Gabriel already said demand. That's redundant, right? But, didn't I say bond is basically lending from the company, right? From the company's side, from the company's end. But, from borrowing from the company's end, but is lending from your end, from the investor's from the investor's end. Bond is lending. If you buy bond, you're lending money. You remember that? Huh? Then think about it. What is the incentive? What is the incentive to lend to this company? I mean, it's like everybody is running to this company. Everybody's crazy to buy the bond of this company. That means everybody is crazy to lend to this company. And what is the incentive? I mean, why is there a craze to lend to this company? Why? What is your incentive to lend? Someone said something?
There's no penalties or anything, like if you don't pay
penalty? Oh, if there's a penalty, I don't have to lend to them. Think about it. Why would I have to lend even?
Maybe they have a lower borrowing rate.
Is there an IPO sellout?
Oh, no, this is a bond, so there's no IPO.
No, I'm saying like borrowing. Maybe borrowing rate is very low.
Borrowing rate is very low. Borrowing rate is very low. You mean the company pays low interest rate?
Yes.
If the company is borrowing, they are paying low. Why would you like to lend to a company that pays very low interest? Huh?
I mean, there's no risk in it, so you're just putting your money in and you're not doing
anything. Yeah. There's one good. That's a good explanation. Very low risk. That's fine. But then again, suppose low risk alone, safety alone is not a good explanation. I mean, because very safe bonds, very safe borrowers don't have to pay you good interest. Isn't it right? Very safe borrowers don't have to pay you good interest, right? So, and suppose the risk level, you are looking at 5 companies and their risk levels are all the same. If their risk levels are all the same, what is the only determinant?
The return?
Scarcity?
Yeah. But in this case, until the return, 2 factors, capital gains and interest, right? But if this company is selling, think about it. If this company is selling above par value, I mean, selling price is 1,200 over the life of the bond, there will be no capital gains, but only capital loss, right? Because I pay 1,200 today, and 10 years later at maturity, I will get 1,000. So there will be only capital loss. So that is a negative factor that will adversely affect the return. But then what's the other factor? There is another factor that even outweighs this capital loss. What's the other factor then? I told you there are 2 factors that determine the return. One is the capital gains. The other one is what? Coupon interest. Do you understand? If this bond pays very good interest, coupon interest, then this bond will be popular. Even after making up for that capital loss, the interest income prevails, right? That capital loss. Now think about it. Suppose this bond pays 15% interest a year, 15% interest a year. And the average market interest rate, prevailing market interest rate is, let's say, 5%. If the prevailing market rate is 5%, what does that mean? The bonds, other comparable bonds, the bonds of the similar risk, other bonds, other competing bonds, but they are of the same risk level, right? If they have the same risk level and they, on average, if the prevailing market rate is 5%, that means other bonds of the same risk level, all on average, pay 5%, but this bond alone pays 15%. And what's going to be the demand for such a bond? What's going to be the demand for such a bond? There will be a crazy demand for such a bond. Does that make sense?
No, I'm confused. I thought we said that this is a zero coupon bond, so there.
No. We're not talking about zero coupon bond. We're talking about the coupon bond, because I've been telling you this bond pays interest, 15% interest. So we're talking about the coupon bond.
Somebody wants the coupon. Makes sense.
So the demand, right? Think about it. It's like, of course, this is also unrealistic assumption. This is an unrealistic assumption, because if they have the same risk level, if 5 companies, A, B, C, D, E, they all have same risk level, there's no reason one company will pay extremely higher interest, coupon interest, on the bond. Okay? So if ever it's different, the differential will be, not that significant, but still there will be, interest rate, a coupon interest rate differential. But anyway, but this is a drastic example, an exaggerated example. If a bond pays, on average, the prevailing market rate is 5%, but if this bond pays 15%, then everybody will go to that borrower. Everybody will go to that company and to buy their bond. It's like, think about it.
Yes, because they offer good interest.
Say that again?
Because they offer high interest.
Yeah.
Help them make
more money. Think about it. Put it this way. You have $10,000. You want to put it in a bank. You have 5 banks, A, B, C, D, E, 5 banks. They are borrowers, so it's the same thing like, companies trying to borrow in the bond market. And out of these 5 banks, one bank, on average, bank interest rates is 5%. They pay you 5% interest. But one bank, one particular bank, Bank C, is paying you 10% interest. That is already a good enough reason for you to put your money into Bank C. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, everyone wants money back. Yeah, they want a higher return. In case of bank, if you put your money in the bank, there's no capital gains but interest, because your $10,000 principal will be $10,000 still. But if you put it for 10 years, every year, you'll get 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%, which is like 1,000. 10 years later, I mean, right? The money accumulated in the bank, the future value, will be more than $20,000. Will be more than 20. You might wonder, isn't it 20,000 because every year is 1,000? No. There's compounding. It's compounding going on. With interest, earning interest, it's going to be more than 20,000. Way more than $20,000. So that is what makes the demand for that bond go up, and as the demand for the bond goes up, the selling price will go up. It can go up to $1,200. That, in that case, is called a premium bond. So the classification, last classification is classification by whether selling price is greater than or less than the par value. And if the selling price is greater than the par value, it's called a premium bond, because the bond is selling at premium. And the discount bond is the bond that sells below par value, and is called, because it's sold at discount, it's called a discount bond. Now, and there are times that the bonds sell at par value, and there is no particular name. It's just selling at par. But don't get confused. Some people confuse. Don't confuse. Discount bond doesn't mean zero coupon bond. Zero coupon bond is a kind of discount bond. So zero coupon is a subset of discount bond. But it's not only zero coupon bond. Interest-bearing bonds can also sell at discount. Why? It's the opposite scenario, opposite case of premium bond. You understand? It's the opposite case, meaning on average, prevailing market rate is 10%. Prevailing market rate is 10%, and this one particular company pays only 5% interest. Now, what's going to be the demand for that bond? What's going to be the demand for that bond? Huh? The demand will be very low. There will be probably no demand. Think about it. There are 5 banks, and you have $10,000. You want to put your money in one of the banks, and all of these banks, on average, they pay all 10%, but one particular bank, Bank C, pays 5% interest. Will you put your money in the bank?
No, not that one, because you're not going to get much payout.
Yeah, you will put your money in other banks, but you will never put your money into Bank C, because they pay much lower interest than other banks. So it's just the same. There are 5 companies with the same credit rating, but on average, that's called the prevailing market rate. On average, they pay 10% coupon interest, but one particular company pays 5%. Then demand for such a bond will be very low. There will be absolutely no demand. If the demand is low, right, then what's going to happen to the selling price? The price will have to go down. Make sense? That's why it is sold at discount, and it's called discount bond, right? So discount bond is not only zero coupon. It's not even coupon bond can be discount bond. And so what is this? Look at the last column. Last column is, what is I subscript C? I subscript C is coupon interest rate. Coupon interest rate, right? That C stands for. So that's the interest rate that the bond pays. Coupon interest rate. I told you coupon means bond's interest. That's called coupon. If the coupon interest rate is greater than R, that R stands for prevailing rate in the market. If the coupon rate is greater than the prevailing rate, it will become a premium bond because the demand is high. And it's exactly the reverse logic or reverse case. It's the mirror. If the coupon rate is lower than the prevailing market rate, the demand will be low, so the bond will sell at discount. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
All righty. Okay, good. So tomorrow we can talk about the open market. We're like 3 days behind then. We are like 3 days behind. All right. So that's it for today. I'll stop recording and